Some stories stay with you long after you hear them. Stories that make you question everything you thought you knew about family, trust, and the price of silence. What I'm about to share happened in a small village not far from where I grew up, and I'll be honest, it disturbed me in ways I'm still trying to understand. As someone who grew up respecting our elders without question, this story forced me to confront some uncomfortable truths about the people we're taught to trust most. I'm sharing it because we need to have these difficult conversations, even when, especially when, they make us uncomfortable. They found the bloodstained wrapper buried beneath the mango tree 3 days after Amara disappeared. Not just any wrapper, the one Nana had woven for her last birthday. Its indigo threads dyed with intricate sunset patterns. Now, the tree's ancient roots cradled it like a tiny, discarded corpse. This story isn't just about Namara's vanishing. It's about trust shattered in the red dust of an African village and the terrible price of silence. The morning it truly began, Amara hurried down the narrow path, red earth kicking up like powdered rust under her sandals. At 15, she knew every stone, every turn of her village, until Uncle Kwame's voice stopped her cold. Namara. Wait. He emerged from the house. He was not her mother's sister, but her grandfather's younger brother, bound by Akan tradition and a lifetime of her trust. I'm late for school, Uncle, she said, in an uncomfortable voice, adjusting her worn backpack strap. School can wait, he replied. His smile was smooth as riverstone, but leaving his eyes untouched. Come, the mango grove, now. The grove behind the house had always been their sanctuary. He'd brought her here as a child, buying ground nuts from the market women while spinning tales of cunning Anansi. Today, the familiar shade felt heavy, pressing down. Dappled sunlight couldn't warm the chill settling in Amara's bones. You're becoming a woman now, Amara, he said, his voice dropping lower, intimate. There are things, secret things, you need to understand. Uncle, I really must go, she stammered, backing a step. The teacher said if I... His hand shot out, closing around her wrist, not painfully, but with a firmness that brooked no argument. Sit down, Amara. His breath, smelling faintly of kenki and something else, hypocrisy, thick and cloying, washed over her. This is love, little one, he murmured, the secret kind. As his shadow fell across her, blotting out the sun, her desperate gaze locked onto a single overripe mango hanging above them. Its skin pulsed faintly, oozing golden sap from a bird's peck mark. Sweetness was visibly rotting in the harsh light. What happened next under that diseased fruit haunted her waking hours and stalked her dreams for weeks. But she would learn that Uncle Kwame's terrifying patience was far worse than his initial urgency. The breaking point came on a sweltering Tuesday. Her parents were away in Kumasi for an aunt's funeral. Grandfather was deep in the yam fields. Grandmother had gone to the bustling market. Alone in the stifling kitchen, sweat beading on her neck as she scrubbed pots, Amara felt the air thicken before she even heard him. Perfect timing, Uncle Kwame's voice slithered from the doorway. He closed the wooden door softly behind him. The familiar click of the latch sounded like a prison gate slamming shut. This time, there was no pretense of conversation, no false gentleness. This time, he simply took what he wanted. Amara bit down hard on her lower lip, the coppery tang of her blood filling her mouth, her terror a suffocating blanket that choked any scream before it could escape. The rough kitchen floor scraped her knees. Afterwards, she sat slumped against the wall, her beautiful birthday wrapper, Nana's love woven into indigo threads, torn and soiled, her spirit feeling just as shattered. Uncle Kwame crouched beside her, his presence a vile intrusion in the aftermath. "You see how easy that was?" he whispered, his voice chillingly calm. "Your parents trust me. Your grandparents trust me. So if you say anything, they will not believe you. Who do you think they'll believe? A hysterical girl or the man who helped raise her? Speak a word," he added, his eyes glinting like flint, "and you are cursed, unmarriageable, ruined." He was right. They both knew it. In their world, a girl's word against a respected elder's was like a whisper trying to drown out thunder. Namara didn't go back to her room. The walls felt like they were closing in, breathing Uncle Kwame's threat. Guided by pure animal panic, she slipped out the silent back gate. She didn't think, didn't plan, she just ran. Ran through back alleys, past startled chickens, the red dust coating her legs, the image of the rotting mango seared behind her eyelids. She ran until her lungs burned, and she found herself pounding frantically on Easy's weathered door, tears finally breaking free in great wrenching sobs. She couldn't speak, couldn't form the words to explain the dirt, the tear in her wrapper, the raw terror in her eyes. Ezzy's was not home, but her mother, Auntie Ya, was. She took one look and pulled her inside without a single question. Her strong arms guided Amara to a stool. She brought a basin of water, fragrant with crushed neem leaves, the same cleansing ritual used after contact with death. As Auntie Ya gently scrubbed, the neem's bitterness mingling with Amara's tears, the girl stared blankly at the intricate cracks in the mud wall. They looked like secret paths leading far, far away from this nightmare. Hours later, Nana arrived, sent by a frantic Uncle Kwame, spinning tales of Namara having wandered off in a confused state. Her grandmother's face was etched with worry lines deeper than usual. Without a word, she walked to her friend Mama Essie to ask if she was there, and true, she was there, sitting, staring at blank roof. Nana helped Namara stand up and told her, "Let's go home, child. You can't wait for your friend all day. She will come find you at home." But her hands, usually so steady when tying the knots, trembled visibly. That tremor, more than any words, screamed to Namara, "Nana knows something terrible happened." When they got home, her grandmother's voice was a low, rough murmur as she smoothed the cloth. "Child, what darkness has touched you?" Namara opened her mouth. The confession burned her tongue, but looking into Nana's fearful, aged eyes, the image of Uncle Kwame's cold certainty, "Who will believe you?" slammed back into her mind. She tasted blood again from her bitten lip. The words died, choking her. The silence she chose in that cart ride home, pressed against the familiar, comforting scent of Nana's cloth, solidified into a cold, heavy stone lodged deep in her chest. She carried it for 3 more weeks. 3 weeks of jumping at shadows, avoiding Uncle Kwame's knowing stares across the compound, inventing excuses when Nana sent her on errands that might take her near him. 3 weeks of the stone growing heavier. Until finally, walking home from school one afternoon, Namara broke. He said, almost crying and voice trembling, "If I told anyone." Her voice was a threadbare whisper, snatched by the breeze. "No man would ever want me, that I'd be cursed, ruined." Ezzy nearly dropped her books. "Namara!" She screamed in a loud, shocked voice. "You have to tell your mother, now." "Tell her what?" Namara's voice cracked. "That her husband's brother?" The sentence hung unfinished, heavy with the weight of cultural taboo. Accusing an elder without irrefutable proof, it felt like blasphemy. "My father," Essie insisted, her voice firming with resolve. "He's on the church council. He knows how to handle difficult things." Hope, fragile as a moth's wing, flickered in Namara's chest. But as they approached the compound gates, it died. Uncle Kwame sat on his familiar stool under the sprawling neem tree, calmly whittling a piece of wood with his sharp pocket knife. He looked up as they passed, his gaze lingering on Amara with an intimacy that felt like violation. "Good evening, Uncle," she managed, the words ash in her mouth. "Good evening, my dear," he replied, his voice smooth, paternal. "Your grandmother is looking for you. The evening meal needs preparing." The sheer, horrifying normalcy of it, him sitting there, whittling, greeting them like any other day, made Namara's skin prickle as if covered in ants. How could he? That night, the rhythmic thud-thud-thud of the pestle in the giant mortar as she helped Nana pound, Fufu felt like the pounding of her dread. Her grandmother paused, leaning on the pestle, studying Amara's downcast face in the firelight. "You've been quiet as a mouse lately, child," Nana said, her voice gentle but probing. "Like a bird with a broken wing. Are you well?" Namara's hands stilled on the smooth wood. She looked up, met Nana's kind, worried eyes. For a heartbeat, the stone in her chest shifted. She almost told her, almost. Then Uncle Kwame's rich, familiar laughter drifted in from the courtyard where he sat with the other men, sharing palm wine and stories. The sound froze the words on her tongue. The stone settled back, heavier than ever. "I'm fine, Nana," she whispered, forcing her hands back into motion. "Just tired from schoolwork." She spoke with hesitation. Nana's eyes narrowed slightly, the sharp look of a woman who had raised 6 children and buried 2, a woman who could smell trouble like rain on the wind. But after a moment, she simply nodded, a deep sadness clouding her features, and resumed her own pounding. If only Namara had understood then that her grandmother's silence, her seeming inaction, carried its own terrible crushing weight. The true turning point came not with a shout, but with a mother's intuition. When Namara's mother finally returned from Kumasi, weary from grief and travel, she took one long look at her daughter, at the way Amara flinched from touch, at the hollows beneath her eyes that hadn't been there before, at the spirit that seemed dimmed, almost extinguished, and knew. Not the specifics, not the horror, but she knew with a mother's primal certainty that something vital in her child had been broken. "Namara," she said quietly, after the evening meal when the men had drifted out to the courtyard and Nana was clearing the dishes. Her voice brooked no argument. "Come with me." They walked not to the main house, lounge, but to the small, rarely used lounge at the back, a place where voices wouldn't carry. The air inside was still and thick with dust motes dancing in the single shaft of fading light. "Tell me," her mother said, sitting down on the worn sofa, her gaze direct, unwavering. No preamble, no gentle coaxing, just 2 words that held the weight of the world. And finally, the stone shattered. Finally, choked by sobs that had been held back for weeks, Amara told her everything. The confrontation that followed was nothing like the dramatic shouting matches in the Nollywood films Namara sometimes glimpsed at Isi's house. It was worse. It was a suffocating silence that seemed to thicken the air, pressing against the compound walls. Namara's father sat hunched on his favorite wooden chair, his head buried in his large, calloused hands. Her mother paced the small room like a lioness trapped in a cage, her movements sharp, agitated. "We have to report this," her mother stated, her voice tight with suppressed fury. She stopped pacing, facing her husband. "To the police, to the chief, to someone." "Report it to whom, Akosua?" her father asked, his voice muffled by his hands. He lifted his head, his face etched with a terrible weariness and something else, fear. The police? What will they do? Arrest him? Then what? The whole village will know. Everyone will know our business. Amara becomes that girl. The one who was, he couldn't say the words. Who will look at her then? Who will marry her? Tell me. He slammed a fist onto his knee, not in anger, but in despair. Number. We send her to your sister Comfort in Accra. She can finish school there, start fresh where no one knows her past. Amara, curled into herself in the corner, felt herself shrinking, becoming invisible. They were deciding her life, her future, as if she were a problem parcel to be posted away. The stone in her chest was back, cold and hard. What about Uncle Kwame? She whispered, the question barely audible. Her parents' eyes snapped to her, then locked in a silent, fraught exchange. Her father sighed, a heavy, defeated sound. He's family, Namara, he said finally, his voice thick. Your grandfather's brother. We can't destroy the whole family over this. The words, over this, struck Namara like a physical blow, as if what had been done to her, the violation, the terror, the shattered trust, was merely an inconvenience, a regrettable incident to be swept under the rug, a problem to be managed, not a crime demanding justice. And there it was, laid bare, the brutal calculus of shame. Her father saw not a daughter violated, her innocence stolen, but a reputation to be shielded, a social standing to be preserved. His solution? Exile for the victim, sanctuary for the predator, a betrayal of the deepest kind, wrapped in the flimsy, poisonous paper of protecting her and keeping the family whole. He would sacrifice his own child on the altar of a hollow honor. But her mother's next words, low and vibrating with a fury Amara had never heard before, cut through the suffocating air and shocked them all, Amara included. Then I'll destroy it myself. And she did. What Akosua, Namara's mother, did next became whispered legend in the village, the truth passed in hushed tones under the shade of market stalls, never spoken aloud in the open compound. She didn't go to the police, their uniforms and procedures alien and intimidating. She didn't go to the chief, bound by tradition and the weight of male authority. Instead, she went to the true power network of the village, the market women. These women, the backbone of daily life, traders of plantains and cassava, sellers of brightly colored cloth and pungent spices, carriers of gossip and news, moved information faster than wildfire through dry grass. Akosua was clever, brutally so. She didn't storm in with accusations. She didn't point fingers directly at Uncle Kwame. Instead, wearing her worry like a visible shawl, she simply mentioned, in the confidential way women share burdens while examining yams or selecting tomatoes, that she was deeply troubled about Amara, that the girl hadn't been herself since returning from staying with the grandparents, that she seemed fearful, withdrawn, jumping at shadows. And then, dropping her voice to a conspiratorial murmur, eyes downcast, she'd add the crucial seed. And Uncle Kwame, he's been so concerned, paying her such special attention lately, always wanting her alone. I worry, sister. What could it mean? She even told his employers and his wife. She planted the seeds of doubt with meticulous care, watering them with feigned maternal anxiety, and then stepped back. She let others draw the lines. She let the whispers begin. Special attention from Kwame, with Namara looking like a frightened bird. Remember how quiet she got after? Within a week, the shift was palpable. Market women who usually greeted Uncle Kwame with cheerful banter suddenly found their stalls urgently needed rearranging when he approached. Mothers, seeing him walk down the path, called their daughters inside with a sharpness that hadn't been there before. The easy respect he had commanded as an elder began to erode, replaced by sideways glances, conversations that abruptly ceased when he entered a gathering, a subtle but undeniable chill emanating from the community he had once been central to. He knew with cold certainty exactly who was responsible. The final confrontation came on a sweltering Friday after lunch. Uncle Kwame cornered Akosua behind the simple whitewashed building, away from the dispersing crowd. His face, usually a mask of genial authority, was twisted with a rage Amara's mother had never seen. In his hand, he held a letter of dismissal from work. "You," he spat, his voice a venomous hiss. "You think you're clever, don't you? Spreading your poison, your filthy lies. You're destroying my life and our family. Is that what you want? To tear us all apart over the hysterical fantasies of a silly girl?" Akosua met his fury not with fear, but with a cold, terrifying calm. She looked him directly in the eyes, her own reflecting a steely resolve forged in the fires of maternal fury. "The family," she stated, her voice clear and low, carrying an iron finality, "was already destroyed, Kwame. You destroyed it the moment you laid your filthy hands on my daughter. I'm just making sure everyone else sees the rot you truly are." His control snapped. His hand flew up, knuckles white, aimed at her face. Akosua didn't flinch, didn't look away. "Go on," she challenged, her voice dropping to a near whisper that was more frightening than a shout. "Strike me. Give them all the proof they need right here." Years later, sitting in her small dorm room at the University of Ghana in Accra, the humid city air thick through the window screen, Amara would sometimes tally the cost of that long-ago justice. Her family had fractured. Her father, though he never spoke of it, carried a permanent distance, a resentment towards her mother for airing their dirty laundry and shattering the fragile peace he had tried to preserve. Some relatives, siding with the ostracized branch of the family or clinging to the old ways of silence, had stopped speaking to them entirely. But other things had been born from the ashes. Her mother, Akosua, had found a voice in that fire and never lost it again. In their new village, far from the whispers of the old, she started a women's group. It began simply as a savings collective, but quickly became something more profound, a safe space under the shade of a large baobab tree where women and girls could gather, share burdens, and speak the unspeakable things that had once been locked behind walls of shame and fear. And Amara herself? She became a social worker, specializing in the cases that echoed her own past, children trapped in webs of abuse, silenced by fear and distorted notions of family honor. She learned, through heartbreaking experience and hard-won victories, that silence was the predator's greatest ally, that protecting a family's honor by sacrificing its children's safety was no protection at all. It was merely feeding the rot. That true honor lay in confronting the darkness, no matter the cost. The red dust still kicked up around her sandals when she visited home, catching the sun. But now she walked through it with the steady, grounded stride of a woman who carried her history not as a burden, but as a weapon. She walked with the hard-earned confidence of someone who understood in her bones that some secrets are too dangerous to keep. This story ends as it began, with a buried truth unearthed. But the seeds Akosua planted weren't of silence. They were of fire. And fire, dear viewer, doesn't ask for permission to burn. It simply consumes the rot and clears the ground for something new to grow. But we must ask, what seeds are we planting? Parents, elders, guardians watching. What price would you pay for your child's truth? Would you sacrifice tradition, family peace, your standing in the community? The story of Amara and Akosua forces us to confront these impossible choices that echo across generations and continents. Pause for a moment. Look within. What would you have done? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If this story of courage against silence resonated with you, share it. Because breaking the cycle starts when we dare to speak and dare to listen. Subscribe for more powerful stories that challenge and illuminate the African experience.